Rattles.
My receiver looks quite a bit bigger than that.
Oh,
It's been a while since
they still make those big ones where you have them on the hip and
right.
they're on monstrosity. Imagine going through the brush of the wire. Oh,
yeah, right.
It's just.
Yeah. I'm in the way. Sorry, folks. I'm in the way.
Okay, good evening, folks. You are at the Venomous Snake exhibit, and we hope here this evening that we can give you a little information about the venomous snakes in Pennsylvania, and you'll be a little more knowledgeable and a little more tolerant of venomous snakes by the time you're done here this evening. I'm Jim Chesney. I'm with the Natural Diversity staff, and I've been working with rattlesnakes, particularly timber rattlesnakes, for over 40 years. With me this evening is Bill Crisp, WCO from North Central Pennsylvania and Cameron County. Bill's been up there for 12 years, and Cameron County is basically rattlesnake central in Pennsylvania. The whole county has populations of timber rattlesnakes and quite well known in the state. Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission is responsible for protection of all reptiles and amphibians, and of course in that includes our venomous snakes. In the state we have 3 different species of venomous snakes. The timber rattlesnake, which comes in light phase, dark phase, can be any shades of brown in between, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. The northern copperhead, common throughout the southern half of the state. I say southern half, basically Interstate 80 south. There are places north of Interstate 80, but it's very river related. We're up there primarily warm air corridors going to the north, and that's where this snake's found up there. And the third species is the Saga rattlesnake, which is a small rattlesnake that lives in Venango and Butler County. It's endangered in Pennsylvania. We have 4 den populations of those remaining. We're in the process of working with them, trying to secure the land, protect the land that they're on, so that we can keep them in Pennsylvania. Venomous snakes many times are mistaken, or non-venomous snakes are mistaken for venomous snakes. It doesn't happen too often with the rattlesnake, simply because they rattle. They're quite easy to identify, but with this guy right here, the copperhead, many times milk snakes, water snakes, hog-nosed snakes, young newborn black rat snakes. I don't know if many of you know that when black rat snakes hatch, and likewise with racers, in probably next month they'll be hatching, we're going to start getting the phone calls that I've got a copperhead, because they have markings, not like these guys, but they have markings across their back. They're not black. And the easiest way to identify a venomous snake is by the markings, learning what the markings are. Of course, rattlesnakes, you can identify those very quickly, but learning what a copperhead looks like, that's the best way to identify it. Other ways that you can identify it is with the pupil on a venomous snake. It's an elliptical pupil, where on a non-venomous snake it's a round pupil. But the downside to that is you've got to get real close to look into his eyes to tell whether it's elliptical or not. And there's another way too that's just as risky, is on the underside of the tail behind the vent, the subcaudal scales. Between the vent and the tail, on a non-venomous snake, those are split. They come in from both sides and join in the middle. On a venomous snake, it's one scale straight across. But who's going to be the one to lift up and look at the bottom side of the tail? You know. So again, the easiest way is the pattern. All our snakes in Pennsylvania are pit vipers, meaning a pit viper possesses a heat-detecting pit between the nostril and the eye. If you look at these snakes, you have to look at them straight on. You'll see that there's like a hole, and it's a heat-detecting pit. And the way I can relate that to you is like if you are around a campfire and you turn and face a campfire and you feel that radiant heat hit your face. That's what these things detect, a difference of less than 1 degree, maybe out to a foot. And the purpose for that is, under the cover of darkness, these snakes can hunt effectively. This time of the year, when it's 90 degrees in the daytime, it's too hot for snakes. They are just holed up. If the the snake, I've had so many people say, oh, I bet they're really laying out on the rocks today. If they were, they'd be dead in 10 minutes. That's all it would take. They are comfortable at the same temperatures that we're comfortable at. And so with these hits, they're effective now as night feeders. Now they become very nocturnal, and most of their feeding and activity takes place at night, which if you're out in rattlesnake, copperhead country, those of you that live out in the woods and stuff know that in the summertime you don't go walking outside without a flashlight. You don't go walking outside in your bare feet at night. You can step on a snake. And Bill will get into that. That's one of the only, that's the way you get bit. You literally have to step on them. They aren't going to attack you or anything like that. In that, I think what we'll do, have Bill talk a little bit about the disposition of the snakes. They're a very non-aggressive species, and you have to do a lot to get them to bite you. Bill?
Yeah, Jim said these guys are laid back. You know, a lot of guys, it's kind of ironic because in snake hunts, you know, guys get all the machismo out of handling these snakes, and actually they're probably the least likely snake to bite you in Pennsylvania. A racer will bite you, you know, well before you're ready, and a water snake will bite you, chase you down and bite you. These guys, the last thing they want to do is bite you. Jim said food and fear.
A little humorous story about a racer. We have a lot of racers in the southern part of the state, in the South Mountain, Show State Forest. And someone says, well, how do you catch a racer? Well, you try to catch a racer with something like this, that's like eating soup with a fork, you know? With the catch a racer, you've got to dive on him and take your bite. You're going to get bit, he's going to bite you every time, and that's how you do it.
How many egg we can get you?
No.
But so these guys are real laid back, and so their number one defense is not their bite. In the woods, in the real, you know, the big woods up there, you know, people, of course, they're no match for us. You know, a cognizant human being that runs a rattlesnake should have no problem navigating around that little glitch in a trail. We'll talk about that. But bears will take them, coyotes take them, turkeys eat them, hawks eat them. I've seen turkey buzzards take live ones, eagles take them. They're 4 pounds of free meat in the woods. So generally they're laying real still. They don't want to be seen. If they are seen, you know, they just want to get away from you. I've had people say, oh, they came at me. And they've come at me too. We go into dense sites during work for surveys and things like that, and the snakes are going everywhere. A lot of times they're going at you. They're not going at you. They're trying to get underneath between your legs, past you to some cover. Usually pretty close to something they can get under, because these hawks flying over and bears running around, they need to get cover fast. So, and they know they can't outrun you. And it's one of the few things in the woods we can't outrun. So we can feel fast around a rattlesnake, unless you're playing with it. So what happens normally is you're walking down the trail, and this is when you get the snake in trouble, is you come around the bend, you pick up a piece of firewood, boom, right there that close, there's a rattlesnake coiled up like that. Of course, that's when you get the big start, and you know, a lot of reaction is, you know, that snake's going to be dead, because he was sneaking up on me. But what he was doing was hoping to God you didn't see him. He's freezing, because that's all he can do. He can't run away, he doesn't want to bite you, and he can't wrestle you to the ground. So he just got to be, you know, I just hope he walks by, and then I go about my business. And sometimes it works. I think a lot of times we walk through the woods, we walk by a lot of snakes. Our tagging guys, you know, when they're tracking them, as Jim was talking about tracking them, I mean, they're getting right up on the snakes, having a hard time finding them, walking by them 2-3 times. So they're just laying there freezing. That's their number one defense. Now it comes down to nit and gritty. When they realize they can't get away and they're cornered, they're going to strike at you. It's their last defense. And that's a desperate snake. Now, they're not going to lunge you. Like I said, they can't run you down, and they can strike fast, but they're not going to strike real far. They can only strike about half their body length. When they're doing that, they're panicking. They're lunging, and they're going to miss. Inside that curve in their neck, that first curve, they can throw their head about 170 miles an hour, and they can hit anything they want at that close a distance. So that's what we're finding. I investigate all the snake bites that happen in my area, call up the guy, and my statistics match other officers in other areas that have timber rattlesnakes around the country. And your typical snake bite incident occurs like this. You have a male between 17 and 25 years old, has about 15 to 20 some beers, and he sees a snake, he says, hey y'all, watch this. and he goes right into that snake, cornered snake zone, and whack, he gets hit. He gets hit right around the hand somewhere here, get a shot of venom. And that's pretty much how it goes. They will only strike for two reasons, food and fear. So they know they can't eat you, so don't make them afraid of you. As a matter of fact, when we feed them with their own prey, they do not kill for fun, they do not kill for no reason. They're actually pretty clever, and they can anticipate and they understand things, and they know when it's time to eat, when it's not. And sometimes they're picky. They might not like a white mouse, they might like the smell of it, the color of it. So if you throw a mouse in there, if they're not hungry, they won't kill it. They'll let the mouse run around, they won't bother at all. And as a matter of fact, if you're a snaker, you know that within 24 hours you got to check. If that mouse is still running around in there, if he's not in there, he's eating, he's not going to be dead. If that mouse is running around in there, you got to get the mouse out of the cage, because the mouse will start eating the snake, start chewing on it, picking off these scales, and the snake will tolerate it to the point where there's a point where they'll defend themselves, but they'll tolerate to a point where it's bad for the snake, where it's like their scales are like our skin. It's leathery, and if they get chipped to them scales away, they get susceptible to infection and mites and all that. So in the interest of the snake, a lot of times to save the snake, we have to take the mouse out, throw it away, get rid of it, give it to another. They will not bother with it. I've had mice jumping up and down on the snake's head. The snake is sick. 24 hours are up, get it out of here. So they're very laid back. Now, their venom, when they do get down to the nitty-gritty, is an important part of their digestive process, as well as the last resort in their defensive process. Now, when you see the movies, the guys in Africa, Indiana Jones, the snakes he runs into, black mambas, they're neurotoxic snakes. Those are the two steps that can kill a human. And with that and that is not what these guys are. Neurotoxin is a venom that travels through your bloodstream and attacks your brain or your central nervous system and paralyzes your lungs, your diaphragm, so that you can't breathe anymore. Basically, that's a common way a neurotoxin works. These guys are not that. These guys are a hemotoxin. Hemo from the word, Latin word for blood. It's a venom. It's a lot like our saliva, except it's a little bit more aggressive with an extra protein molecule. And what it does is when it gets injected into a red blood cell carrying creature like us, a warm-blooded animal, they don't have red blood cells. They can strike each other and it won't hurt each other. When they strike you, though, the red blood cell is here under a microscope. Here comes the venom. It's transfusing through your blood. It attaches to a red blood cell. It makes it basically suck in a bunch of fluid till it bursts. It makes mush out of the red blood cells. And so, doing that process, it can't travel up your veins because it's dissolving your veins, making them go pop. So, we are so big that venom can't really get to your internal organs and kill you. No human has died from a timber rattlesnake bite in Pennsylvania. And that's one of the reasons why we always get bit. Now, if someone's taking a giant vial and stick it in your chest, that's a different thing. But a regular snake carrion, hitting you in the hands, it's going to do a lot of damage. It's not saying, hey, these guys are mellow, and the officer said the snake bit me, but it won't kill me, so I'm going to go ahead and grab it anyway. You don't want to do that unless you really like pain. Because now this thing's, you're injecting acid under your skin, and it's dissolving your red blood cells. There'll be tremendous swelling, because all those cells will pop, making mush. On a rat or a squirrel, it's devastating because that's injected in the vital organs, it's dissolving the vital organs. And when we chew our meat, we're mixing saliva and dissolving our meat before it gets to our stomach, preparing it. It's the same thing with them, but they can't chew. So it's dissolving the rat and basically making a fur-covered milkshake that they can stretch out down their stomach and dissolve because they can't chop it up and chew it like we can. So that's happening to you at a local level, just in your hand muscles or legs, not your vital organs. If I was to get bit right now, I'd run around screaming, and Jim would tackle me and say, "You knucklehead, would you grab that snake for?" He slapped me 3 times. And then he'd pull the ring off my hand, any constricting clothing, any bands, jewelry, anything like that, he'd remove it because he's going to know that my hand, the area is going to swell up with those red blood cells popping to 5 times its size pretty fast. Turn black and blue, get real ugly. I'm going to be, oh, that hurts, oh, that hurts. And he's going to take me to the hospital, light constricting band, treatment for shock, light, not a tourniquet, we're talking like a little light band here, don't cut off the circulation. And take me to the hospital where I'll get treated with an antivenom, and the antivenom is more to protect my hand, keep from swelling, and protect the muscles, so I can use my hand in the future more than it is necessarily to save my life. Jim's going to add some more stuff about it.
Yeah, we unfortunately, I said unfortunately because anytime you handle a snake, there's risk involved, and we must handle snakes in our profession. We have a lot of research that we have ongoing in Pennsylvania. We are pit tagging certain populations. Of course, a tube, this is what we run the snake up in and then grab it, and then that way we can work with the snake while the snake's in the tube, half the snake's in the tube. That's how we safely handle it. We inject pit tags. This is a pit tag. We put it in with a syringe, and then it's read with a reader. It's like a barcode technology. We have about 2,000 rattlesnakes in the state right now in the wild that are carrying pit tags. We track putting transmitters in snakes in gap areas where we know there's rattlesnakes in this area, but we don't know where their critical habitat is, so we do the surgeries all over at Newville, the Big Spring facility, for several areas within the Commonwealth, and we have teams that track those snakes, and ultimately the snake will lead us to his den or her den in the fall. Some of the safety equipment, leggings and so on that we use, and unfortunately, I said we handle snakes. Both of us have been bitten, but it wasn't the snake's fault. In my case, it wasn't the snake's fault. I made a mistake. I did something I shouldn't have. Hindsight's 20/20, but I got bit, and probably the same with Bill. But Pennsylvania has done a lot of proactive management with the rattlesnake, with the copperhead, and we've come a long way. Back 30 years ago, the timber rattlesnake numbers were really depleted in the state, due primarily then to over-harvest. We've now got that under control, and actually the problem then is now probably our best ally. The snake hunters are some of the best conservationists out there. We issue about 800 permits per year, and our harvest is about 80 snakes. So you can see the snake hunters are not harvesting the snakes. We have the permitting program. We monitor the organized snake hunts. We have a lot of environmental review going on up north right now with the Marcellus Shale, requiring monitors on pipeline construction, well pad construction. We have a wind farm going in, 88 turbines up in Wyoming County. It's northwest of Scranton, and right now there's like 5 monitors on that job. They're encountering 50 rattlesnakes a day, crossing roads, they're just all over the place, and they're saving all these snakes from getting whacked, run over, and so that's our position with the rattlesnake. We're very, very proactive with it. We have other states now calling us up saying, how are you doing this? Because, had Oklahoma the other year call me up, you mean you get these guys to report? I mean, they just can't imagine you get somebody to report what they saw, because they just won't do it down there. But all our hunters have to report what they saw, and that's how we know what the harvest is. But they're a very, very important creature in the ecological balance of the forest, and we are very, very serious about protecting them and keeping them here in the state. One researcher, Dr. Howard Reinert, had said that Pennsylvania has between 5 and 10% of the entire breeding population of timber rattlesnakes anywhere in the 31 states that they're found. This is the biggest breeding population in the country. We want to keep it that way. It wasn't always that way. We built it to be that, and we want it to continue. And with that, I'll end, and we have about 7 minutes for question and answers.
Copperheads more or less.
I have one in the back row on the color cases of rattlesnakes. Timber rattlesnakes come in either, we call them black or yellow, dark or light. Has nothing to do with sex, it's a genetic thing. Female timber rattlesnake can have a litter, half will be dark, half will be light, and just the way it works. There are certain areas of the state where the dark phase, like northern Pennsylvania, is more predominant. Real southern part of the state, in the Blue Ridge, northern end of the Blue Ridge Mountains, the yellow is more predominant, but it just, maybe it has to do more with the environment than anything. Those that blend in the best, that are more cryptic, are the ones that are living to reproduce.
so it's not a dominant recessive thing necessarily.
What's that?
It's not a dominant recessive trait, or it's just...
No, I mean, there's both color phases found both areas, but it's just
It is what it is.
unpredictable, you know. Your question was?
I was going to say, are the Copperheads or Rattlesnakes more or less aggressive? Which one's more aggressive?
I like to see the Copperheads high strung.
Yeah, I refer to them as being snappy. They startle quick, and maybe you can be from me to you, and they're just striking and going on as they're retreating to their safety rock. They seem to startle more. Where a rattlesnake, a lot of times, like Bill said, you'll see it. He'll be sound asleep, and you know that instance where you see a rattlesnake and you jump back. If you can get through that stage of, oh my God, I've got to kill this thing. Step back, come to your senses. One thing you know for sure, your heart's going to be working. It really works. Try to get over that fear of killing it and appreciate the magnificent creature you're looking at. And anytime you're looking at a rattlesnake or a copperhead, one thing that we use, you can be looking at it. A lot of times they're sleeping, and they don't have eyelids, so they sleep with their eyes open, but when they're sleeping, their tongue is not flicking. Anytime they're awake, you'll notice with all these snakes, the tongue is constantly going. So that's one thing you can think, that snake's sound asleep, that's why he didn't rattle. He wasn't waiting until I got a little bit closer to strike. You know.
Several of the other stations said, you know, we don't keep these were confiscations, or we caught these in the wild, or, you know, we can't maintain habitat. Are these your show?
These are our snakes that were acquired through confiscations. Timber rattlesnakes do not, and copperheads likewise too, you can't let them go. In other words, they're imprinted to one den. When they were confiscated, we don't know even where they came from. So for us to take the snake out in rattlesnake country and let it go, we're probably dooming that snake. Studies have been done with rattlesnakes that were actually moved from one county to another and actually put into a known den that was discovered through radio telemetry. The snakes didn't know anything. They left and trying to find their way and perished. They get imprinted to one spot, and that's it. So when we relocate a snake, like if you have a property and you capture a snake going across the property and need to move that snake, we recommend moving it no more than 100 yards. Take it back in the woods, dump it out, let it go. It's had a bad experience with you, the predator. It doesn't want to come back. And we know they don't come back because we pit tag a lot of snakes, particularly over in Michaud State Forest at Caledonia State Park, where they had last year 3 snakes in the interior part of the campground in one night, 3 rattlesnakes. We pit tag all these snakes, take them behind the campground, let them go. They don't show up again.
There is a season on them, you just can't grab them either. There's a hunting season on them. It's second Saturday in June to the end of July, July 31st, last day of the season. It's a special permit, you can't just go over the counter and get it, you have to go through the Fish Commission. And there's a tag system like it here. And copperheads have to be, copperheads fall on a regular one season with a tag, with a permit. These guys have to be tagged, and they have to be a male above 42 inches. And there's a system for measuring the subcaudal scales on their belly. A male has 21 or more, and a female has less than 21. They have to take a male. A guy who used to, the snake hunts and the regulated portions of that have helped promote the snakes, and through control, having these guys out there keeping eyes on the snakes and caring about having a good population. But in the old days, having guys going in and getting a bunch of females could wipe out a den, because they only reproduce once every 5-6 years. Sometimes they wouldn't even do that. And if a guy got into a couple of pregnant females, he could wipe out a whole generation.
How many snakes per den?
Depends on the den. There's some with a few, and there's some with hundreds.
The dens are all familiar?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Well, the males will visit other dens, so you have males coming in their maternal dens more. The females will stay local.
We found that out through radio telemetry that the male snakes, sometimes they'll take you to a good site, and sometimes where they go, it's like, I could have picked out a better spot than this. The females generally are very gregarious. When they take you to a den site, it's a good den site. Okay, thank you very much. You're welcome. There's handouts up here, and welcome to look at the snakes and our equipment. And thanks again for stopping by.